Well, we're going to take a look at RDU versus Pavel as our second match that's coming up here. And this one's a very important one for RDU as he needs to pick up wins given what happened yesterday in his match where he was unsuccessful versus Orange, and now they both sit at a 6-5 record. If he's going to make that playoff spot, he has to be winning this next match that's coming up.
Yeah, and this is, for RDU, this is kind of the matchup that he was looking for. He's been playing the more aggressive form of Bomb Warrior by throwing in extra magnetic minions so that he can tempo out on the board much more effectively. And because of that, he was looking to queue into other Bomb Warriors. He did not get that in his first matchup. This time he has found it, so we'll see if that strategy pays off. Because honestly, you know, if Tice didn't just rock up with Nomi Priest, we'd perhaps be calling this RDU deck the riskiest bring of the week in terms of Europe, right? Because it's one of the most left field decks that we're seeing in a week that's pretty much standard.
Let's go ahead and take a look at RDU's deck list, which I personally am a big fan of. Purple was the one who tipped me off to this build. Purple, one of the America's Grandmasters players. And he walked up to me and he started talking about it because I was talking with Frodan about a Bomb Warrior deck that used magnetic minions. And Frodan sat down for a couple games. He went, "This is just awful." And I was like, "Oh, come on, your opening hit's bad. You played 2 games." He's not wrong, but he's not right. And Purple had walked up to me and he goes, "Oh, I heard you talking about it. It's Vancouver Warrior." And I went, "Vancouver Warrior? Why is it named that?" He said, "You play your minion to the west, and then you go to the north." And it was a Canadian-inspired deck. And where's Vancouver? The Northwest.
There are so few vowels when you say Vancouver Warrior. It really amuses me.
Vancouver Warrior. Aerodynamics. It's a very aerodynamic deck where those they're quick, man. These magnetic minions, ratata, they just get you.
Yeah, I actually saw Purple and Zalay and Gallon, I believe, testing that deck as we move on to Pavel, who's playing a much more standard Bomb Warrior. But RDU's deck, I saw it being tested when I believe Gallon, Purple, and Zalay got together before Vegas at Zalay's place to lab decks. And when they were playing it there, they were even playing replicating menaces and like all kinds of nonsense in there as well, like really pushing it to the nth degree. But yeah, from Pavel's side, much more standard stuff. Secondary deck teched for mech decks in essence, which might come into play here. EMP operatives and IMB cows, maybe. But tertiary deck, the anti-mage, not something that we're likely to be seeing.
Yeah, I'm interested in the EMP operative. I think this is a catch-all for 2 decks where, number 1, Mech Warrior and Mech Hunter both have places in metagames. You have to be making pretty decisive calls of when to use them.
Yeah.
You need a pretty lopsided metagame, but Specialist, I think, is definitely that sort of field where you are either going to get a range of the big 3, or you're going to get everyone weighted towards one way or the other. So how you take that on is another story, but you take a look at Masters Tour Las Vegas, there was over 100 Warrior decks in that tournament.
Yes. I think there's also merit to say when you're playing Bomb Warrior, there are very few matchups where you feel massively unfavored, right? So you're looking at super greedy mages and super greedy mech paladins and mech hunters. Those are probably your worst matchups. So even regardless of what the expected field is, I do think there's some merit of saying I'm going to use one of my decks to be able to push back against a super greedy mech paladin or mech hunter, because that's just what I'm scared of seeing. Everything else, sure, I'll just play primary. It's Bomb Warrior. It's fine. You know, it'll get the job done.
Yeah. You said even regardless, and in my head I was like irregardless, where I'm like combining irregardless and even regardless into the same word. And that's where my head went on that, and I just thought it was kind of funny to me. So I wanted to bring that up.
That definitely needed saying.
I had nothing to add to your point. Your point was great. I told you, I find the auxiliary reasons, and then you clarify the main reason. It's like Back to the Future. Like, the movie wasn't interesting when they went forward. It was interesting when they went backwards. Except for that was the complete inverse of that, where the second one was the best one because they went to the future, and the first and third were the bad ones because they went into the past.
You think the first Back to the Future is bad?
I don't think it's bad. I'm saying in comparison to number 2, it was 1 and 3 were the worst of them.
All right.
I personally enjoyed number 3 because I just love the Wild West.
Same. I have a lot of nostalgia about the third one because it's just, I don't know if anyone else has this experience, but like the age I am, you just had certain VHS tapes in your house, so those were the movies that you watched because you just owned them, and Back to the Future 3 was just one of the films my family owned.
You know what? My only beef with that entire film is the end, where like I was like, that's the sign-off you give? You really needed finality to, well, what about Doc and his wife?
Yeah.
You know where Doc is. He's in the Wild West cooking up inventions. He was like telling him about the Olympics that are happening. That guy in the saloon, he's like, run for fun? Why would anybody do that?
I'm glad you're here to do the accents, because it would go horribly wrong if I tried. But I'm here to cast some Hearthstone, so let's do that. We got a Bomb Warrior mirror going down. RDU definitely looking to be the aggressor as much as possible. As we've mentioned at length, he has the additional tools in his deck to be able to do that. But Pavel has the opportunity to be able to shut this down quite quickly with the hand that he has, because Snip Snap is an enormous roadblock.
Yeah, it's just a powerful card.
Yep.
I think this might be one of the most flexible cards that's been made ever.
Agreed.
Now, something to note is that I don't necessarily think that either player is the natural aggressor in the matchup. I think that the edge on taking the aggressor stance goes to RDU. But I felt oftentimes in Bomb Warrior, if you are not able to be an aggressor, what ends up happening is you both just get into this weird homogenized role of like a standoff, where neither of you want to commit resources, and neither of you are really willing to over-respond and try to create swing turns. It turns into a delicate dance where eventually you can make a read or attempt to make a read, and it either goes horribly right or horribly wrong. Right now, Pavel's running away with the aggressor's role, so I'm quite worried for RDU, because as the opportunity to get aggressive, you have War Gear in your deck, which means you have less responses.
Yes. When you draw a War Gear and you are off the board and therefore have nothing to magnetic it onto, that is a very miserable draw. I'm sure everyone has this experience. Mech Hunter is a much more common deck on ladder than it is in Specialist, so people will be very used to playing against a lot of Mech Hunter, and I think most people learn very quickly, if you can just remove all of the mechs from their board, you are winning that game.
Yeah, I want to add the caveat of that is that's how you know that Mech Hunter is a bad deck, is there are many more of it on ladder than there are in Grandmasters. Don't let the stat aggregates fool you.
Well, you mean Hook Tusk Rogue isn't the best deck in the game?
Well,
you mean Rafam isn't the
hang
best
on.
deck? No,
well,
not going there.
No, I'm totally down to go on the Rafam route. The Hook Tusk Rogue route, you know, I watched Jay Alexander tweet out the Golden Nightmare amalgams he crafted, and I just clapped. No one was even in the room with me. I just started clapping, and I was like, that's beautiful. Yeah. And I played a lot of that deck as a result of it, and then I realized how quickly I don't know how to play rogue decks when you don't just blast off and kill them instantaneously. Hats off to Jay Alexander. He's getting a lot of shout-outs here in Grandmasters.
He is. I don't know, he's definitely stepped up his meme value recently, I feel.
You know, that's not why that's not why I follow. It is the hot takes on hot debates.
Right.
I think that he's got a sharp mind, and I think that's very unique, where even myself included, I'm more willing to put a lot of time into thinking about something and come out with a, well, I see it both ways, because I do.
Hold on, let me check my Caster Thesaurus real quick. He what am I looking for? Yeah, he definitely has interesting opinions on a lot of
Oh no, come on. The whole point of the harsh statements is to draw attention to it. It's a topic worth talking about.
As we resume Bomb Warrior gameplay, and really not much has changed.
Yeah.
RDU just doing his best to fight from behind, and that's not where his deck wants to be.
I do think he's in pretty good shape to fight from behind, though. He has a game plan to get through like the turn 8-9, which is probably one of the scariest times for Bomb Warrior when it's not winning, is covering the trough from turn 8 to turn 10 so that you can access Omega Devastator, or even just have the fear equity of your opponent having to consider that card, is one of the toughest things to do in the game. And so the big kicker to me is that Pavel's far ahead because he's got the big 7s. RDU doesn't have those, and so he's going to have to try and turbo draw to them because he has no opportunity to get aggressive anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's just RDU is kind of failing each step in a checklist step by step right now, right? Like, can I get early aggression? No, damn, okay. Fall back on the Dr. Boom, the twin 7 drops plan later on. Oh, I don't have that either, right? Like, it's just such a small window for him to find any way back into this game.
And you look at that Snip Snap that was coined out, it's no longer there in its immediacy, but that stuck around for a long time.
Yep. It's still hanging around in Wally form.
I really wish the tokens were also legendary and they were named Snip and Snap.
Well, that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, like the Rice Krispies characters.
Yeah.
Or Wobbling Runs, if you recall. I was pretty interested in the war gear this turn. Is he saving that specifically for Ziliak's potential, or just when he secures the board to push damage? Like, what is that weak to?
Did he... No, the Town Crier was the draw off the first shield block, right?
Yeah, so he went shield block, which I don't mind. It does play to the role that RDU's in right now, which is cover the trough of A, turbo draw to the important cards, and then B, get to turn 10. So it makes sense. I guess I actually just answered my own question with the original point I made.
Exactly. You said it earlier, right? Where he knows that his aggression has failed, therefore he's looking at a hand that has none of the power cards in it and saying, I need to draw to the power cards. I think that's very reasonable.
Wow, I'm both smart and dumb.
Yeah.
I'm Schrodinger's intelligence quotient. It both is and is not there.
So many choices.
The look on RDU's face is very accurate for this turn. Can I do anything?
No.
Wow, even Magnes is accurate.
Wow, who is that handsome?
Yep. Seems fine. Dr. Boom. Good card.
What's funny to me
remember
is...
when this just used to happen to you? You just think, there is just no way I can beat this. You know, like several years ago, Dr. Boom came down with 2 boom bars. It's like, I lose. Like, there's no way. And now it just comes down and just spreads 6 out across the board.
Like, I was just about to go down that road where it's I've seen people just mock this. And people are hesitant to do this.
Yeah.
Back in the day, Strife Pro said that the best 2 cards out of Goblins versus Gnomes after Dr. Boom were left Boombot and right Boombot.
Was Strife Crow the one that predicted it right from the start?
Oh yeah, it was I remember because you can still go find the old chart. It's like on the archived Frozen in Time Liquid page, like Liquid Hearth or something, and you read everyone's charts. And we had Spectral Knight very high on the list, which was accurate at the time because there were tons of Miracle Rogues. I remember Undertaker was, once we had discussed it with Chalky, it was like, we were like, everyone who didn't list it in their top 10 was like, oh yeah, that was just a bad idea. And
Undertaker's a Naxxramas card.
Was it Naxxramas?
Yeah.
So is Spectral Knight, actually.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else we did with GVG. Obviously, the Trogzor thing was a disaster. We don't talk about that.
Yeah.
But I do remember, like, Strife Pro saying that it was left Boombot and right Boombot, and I went, you know, I thought Dr. Boom was okay, but like I didn't think it was that powerful. Like, in the hyperbole I used was if the Boombots had taunt, it would be playable, which is technically true. If the Boombots had taunt, it would be playable.
Correct. Yeah, it's not a full statement.
I did not say it was unplayable. I want to point that out to all the people who still laugh at me for that to this day, who just keep bringing up old stuff and can't forgive an old guy.
Yeah.
But I remember playing it on day 1 after Strifeco said that, and the first time I played it, the Boombot killed an Azure Drake, and I went, oh my gosh, and I instantaneously made a golden Dr. Boom. That's the play we now mock when Bomb Warriors have to make. 2 Boombots! Oh my gosh, that's literally an old guy statement too. Back in my day, you know what 2 Boombots used to get you? Just inflation.
You could go to the pitches and still have enough change for an ice cream on the way home.
Plus a train ride from Mediterranean to Baltic Avenue.
Yeah. Meanwhile, RDU still struggling with the dilemma of his minions not having rush, which is somewhat unfortunate right now.
It is. The Dr. Boom payoff has not come to fruition yet. For Pavel, it's going to be about being able to generate that tempo turn after turn.
He killed a Blastmaster Boom with a Dynamatic. I think that is already a pretty huge payoff.
It is.
The Dr. Boom.
And that's the thing, is it started to make its impact, which right now has been life total. Down the road, it's going to also be a tremendous amount of value. And that's where the issue is really going to come up. So for RDU, if he does not find either a second Omega assembly or doesn't find a Dr. Boom Mad Genius in the next couple of turns, it's about to get really ugly because Pavel is approaching his fully stacked Blastmaster turn.
Right.
But the payoff right now of Dr. Boom has quite literally been health total, which is very relevant, but that matters down the road. And so for RDU, I'm wondering how aggressive can he get with Snip Snap in a spot like this? Is he free to just load up a big one? The answer is kind of no, just because there's a giant armor total. Like, you lose the minion to a single shield slam.
Just not sure he's looking at too many better options right now. Obviously, spreading wide with the Snip Snap is vulnerable to even more cards. You run into Warpath worse, you run into Brawl worse.
Yeah.
Being a bad card in the matchup that people really look for an opportunity to get usage out of.
Yeah, going wide with Snip Snap, I think, is rarely the play.
Yeah. With
Snip Snap in a Warrior matchup,
Right.
and it's by virtue simply of you activate your opponent's Brawls and Warpaths. So if you've been the aggressor and need to force those tools, sure. But if you're the aggressor and need to force those tools, it's often better just magnetized onto an active minion. It's a tough spot.
Somebody order a bomb.
No one did.
Clockwork Gnome is at least a better delivery man than DMX. DMX has been saying for years that he's going to give it to me, and I still have not received it. I don't even have a tracking number yet. Clockwork Gnome, if you order a bomb, it's coming.
It might take a couple turns, but I mean, the shipping was free. 5 health. Wow, it's
Please don't make Schrodinger's the theme of this day of casting.
I think that's too late.
Okay.
I like the aggressive use of tools here by Pavel. I think that saving onto Ziliax is very important in the matchup. This is one of the philosophies I've held with Ziliax and Bomb Warrior for a while, is that why use Ziliax unless you're desperate? When you get desperate, when you have to kill something, or when you're running out of life. I hate using Ziliax before that point in a Bomb Warrior matchup. Unless I'm getting aggressive, in which case, whoo!
Yeah, I think RDU's playing the kind of deck where you could justify just jamming magnetic Ziliax for tempo and pushing damage, right? Like,
yeah,
it's reasonable with the kind of build that RDU has with the extra magnetic stuff. But for the most part, like classic Bomb Warrior mirrors at this point, yeah. Ziliax is much more insurance policy than it is a tempo tool.
I do think that as soon as you grab that opportunity to get aggressive, it's usually going to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's true with just about every card in the Bomb Warrior mirror as well. Like,
it's just it's tough to recognize when that is because it's such a subtle difference in the momentum.
Yes.
So many times learning how to play aggressive, what ended up happening to me was I would slam everything every single game in a row to try and recognize what that situation looked like. And eventually I somewhat figured it out. But up until that point, I lost a lot of Bomb Warrior games.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
Not the most powerful thing I've ever seen.
Let's blow this place
Job's done.
The bomb draw on the last turn by RDU, of course, ends up being crucial because there were exactly 3 in there at the time. Pavel did have the option to just go Blastmaster Boom for the guaranteed full suite of boom bots on the previous turn, but instead went for that full clear option, which I think we both agree with. He got usage out of some awkward cards in the matchup. I don't go as far as to call Warpath a bad card in the Warrior Mirror. I think you can usually find a spot where it's fine. I think like we're in this weird spot with Warpath where every game we say Warpath is a bad card, so it's good here, so use it here. But if every game there's a spot where Warpath was good, then it's not a bad card, right?
Yeah, referencing the caster dictionary again,
yeah.
I think that for the cadence of the matchup, what it is that Bomb Warrior wants to get aggressive.
Sure.
Because I think, honestly, Brawl's kind of bad in Bomb Warrior. It's a necessary tool, though. It's like, it's meant for specific situations. To me, that's kind of the definition of a bad card. It's used very specifically, and that's it.
Okay. Yeah, very specifically, potentially just killing 3 boom bots and leaving a 7/7 alive. He does get the Blastmaster Boom to go down.
Yeah.
5 from the boombox.
But kind of touching on the Blastmaster versus the RD's previous turn, there's 2 times where I hate playing Blastmaster Boom. Number 1 is when my opponent has Eternium Rovers. Number 2 is when they have lots of little, basically irrelevant minions in play, which is exactly what Snipsack does.
Right.
And then because of the Death Rattle ordering, the Boombots, often just threaten to clear 1/1s. Why use one of your most valuable damage resources to clear 1/1s when you got a Warpath for that?
Yeah, that's fair.
So RDU has gotten some pretty good recognition here. The Blastmaster Boom wasn't devastating, and Pavel's honestly just been kind of gassed. He hasn't really been doing much. So again, you think about Dr. Boom Mad Genius, and without a bunch of 1/1s and Discovery Drones, it really has yet to see a payoff.
Speak to me.
And now's the time where RDU wants to start seeing these bombs come in. It starts shredding off armor, and he's already used Blastmaster. He does not want to see them ever replaced by Archivist Lysiana.
I think you recognize Pavel's play is based on exactly what you were just saying, that his hand was just kind of gassed out at that point. So he feels like he has to accelerate the game now towards the kind of Elysiana proceedings because he wasn't able to generate any initiative without doing that.
RDU's finally under some threat, though. Microbot shows up. You can't just keep getting chipped away every turn. +4/+2 looks pretty good. Yeah. Every opportunity you get to push damage is a pretty relevant one. 3/1/1's just annoying. And I'm looking at that Ziliax to be a big player in this game.
Hey, look, Warpath's pretty good here.
All it took was us falling way behind. Necessary tool. It's going to happen sometimes. Yep.
And you can see now, like, the tonal shift in the matchup where both players are somewhat now set up for playing the long game, right? Like, RDU isn't just tempoing out 4/5s for the sake of it. He's keeping them to answer big threats. Pavel is only really playing cards when they efficiently answer the opponent's cards, and that's just kind of the nature of his remaining deck at this point. He doesn't have a huge amount of things that he can just develop. The best things he has to just develop are the contents of his Omega assemblies at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how if both players have a Lysiana, it changes how both players play. If one player has Lysiana and doesn't, and the other one doesn't, how that impacts the pace of play. And if both players don't, how much that impacts the pace of play. Like, it's crazy that a single card can create that much. Still no Blastmaster. I'm sorry, Dr. Boom. Why am I now mixing up those two?
I have no idea. Brilliant Nullifier, one of the big breakpoints in the matchup. Very difficult to answer from the opponent.
Yeah, I am pretty curious about this turn because for RDU, if you had if you had Dr. Boom active, the Beryllium Nullifier Vicious Scrap Hound represents much more than it does right now. So is he willing to hold on to that and just try to, again, fight pretty honest combat on board? Because the longer it takes you to find Dr. Boom, the more valuable those Omega Devastators become. Like, they become crucial as you get closer, and they also become crucial for making sure you don't get tempoed. The fact that Pavel didn't draw him meant that it was tough for him to pressure the whole way through.
And RDU says yes, does hold on. Second Dynamatic used to just take care of a Town Crier. I think this last couple of turns now for Pavel, this turn and the turn where he draws his last card, he needs to push for tempo hard.
Yep.
The reason he needs to push for tempo hard is because in a couple of turns, he needs to play Elysiana. And you want to play Elysiana while you have tempo. If you don't aggressively push into the board and make your opponent answer you, they will play threats into your Elysiana turn, which means if you play Elysiana, you're going to take 10, 12, 14 damage in the process, and that is not what you want to be doing. So, pushing out very hard here from Pavel, using an Omega Devastator, which is of course a premium resource in the matchup, just to be able to keep tempo and push damage, I think is very much the correct decision.
Yeah, that actually, I'm going to take that to illustrate a perfect use of Omega Devastator and how you ideally want to use the card to complete some sort of miniature objective within the game. It is just a good removal card. Good cards are good. But when you need to get something done, that's the timing where Omega Devastator can most easily open up that opportunity.
And you see again, the change in rhythm in the matchup. Now RDU recognizes that he has to play a little bit quicker because Pavel is approaching that Elysiana turn. RDU can't just sit back and answer, so now you see RDU using those Omega Devastators that he's been holding on to for so many turns at this point. Whew.
And so for Pavel, I think this is the time to get Elysiana down if you're not under threat.
Exactly. It looks simple in retrospect, but just a 1-2 punch, take a very fast turn so that RDU cannot completely swing the state of the board, even if he does have the best card available, which is a Mega Devastator, and then use that to just comfortably get an Elysiana down on the follow-up.
In Pavel's pan out so far, I would have been on Gorehowl Arcanite Reaper, and I would be taking Execute here. Definitely the Grom.
Yep.
And definitely the Clockwork
Goblin.
Akali, does it pull mechs from your deck if they all have Rush?
No, I don't think so.
Wow, I've never encountered
that. It's okay. You can do it. There we go.
So Heavy Metal was the choice over Execute. I'm quite surprised by that because you anticipate losing your armor in the matchup. So the use of that is specifically then with Blast Shield when you gain 7 armor from the hero power.
Seems reasonable. It was up against Execute?
Yeah. Execute's good with a lot of your hero powers.
That's fair.
It's also a tempo tool versus a development tool. I think when you have nothing but a bunch of weapon damage in your deck that you want to be able to answer the board.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about double Gorehowl, double Arcanite Reaper. Seems like potentially a bit much in the situation.
Yeah, right. A bit much for RDU, maybe. 10 damage and 7 damage? Are you kidding? He's just got 34 extra damage in the deck. I love that. I love getting weapons off that thing.
All right.
When I don't like getting weapons is when I don't have any removal. That's when the weapons are off.
I've played these kind of late game scenarios a lot, and I think it's pretty rare that you have the freedom to spend 7 mana on a Gorehowl and hit your opponent in the face.
You're not wrong.
That happens very rarely.
What also happens very rarely is that a player gets through their entire deck, didn't die to bombs, had Dr. Boom, and played Elysiana before your opponent has drawn Dr. Boom or has to Elysiana.
I still think this play should be illegal. Everyone in the Hearthstone community should just agree now that no one attacks with a Mega Devastator.
Just protest nerf.
Yeah, it just deals 10 damage, and even if you're Dr. Boom, you're not allowed to attack with it.
You see, there's going to be that one person then who does it, and then everyone's going to go back to doing it.
Shh, that's my master plan. Get everyone else to stop doing it. I'm the only one dealing 14 with my Omega Devastator.
When you're casting on Grandmasters and have that platform, that is a great time for a master plan.
No one man should have all this power.
Job done.
Hey, see? Pavel gets it.
Nice.
4-5.
Good guy, Pavel.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so fair now.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't like that. I want to go back to disgusting, game-ending, neutralizing plays.
And RDU, well, we were joking about RDU kind of freaked out at seeing that Omega Devastator come down, and Pavel still has one to spare.
Yeah. I mean, that was about the worst sight he could have possibly seen was an Omega Devastator, because what that means is
So
he's out of
many
them,
choices.
and he can't tempo back and get his Elysiana down. So every single turn that he's getting closer to Elysiana, it becomes more dangerous for him in terms of playing Elysiana and not dying.
Yes, the exact opposite of what we talked about at length about Pavel trying to set up that 1-2 punch of tempo to be able to secure a comfortable Elysiana. RDU has to find that opportunity himself in a couple of turns as well, and he is going to very much struggle to do that with the remaining cards in his deck.
Yeah, you know, I don't think that the matchup really boils down to one player drew Dr. Boom before the other. But when one player draws it and has it the entire game and the other player fails to draw it, it does add up to a tremendous difference.
Yes.
Like, it has now fully come to fruition where Pavel's in full control of the game.
If one player has Dr. Boom on 7 and the other player draws it on turn 10, fine, that can be negligible. If one player has Dr. Boom for 15 turns while the other player does not, yeah, you just very unlikely to overcome that.
It's tough to beat any powerful tool that goes that long without being matched.
Yeah.
Flashlings are so fragile.
Who's talking, Mr. 2-6?
This story deserves
Yeah,
Just goes now.
it feels bad. But if he doesn't play it now, he's not going to play it.
Yikes.
That is definitely the start of the yikes.
Double yikes.
I don't think Soul Thrace is that bad.
I just don't think RDU's in a position where it ends up being good. It's going to be too much damage to take. He's going to need to use it to clear boards, and it's just going to be too much damage. He's just hammering into his own face. Jeez, this is a very low-tier Elysiana so far.
It's some bad. Dragon Roar?
Like, Bulldozer doesn't even have Rush because he played it before he found his Mad Genius.
Actually,
It's so crazy.
Just dozing off.
Yeah.
Because the dozer.
Warpath, Dragon Roar, Spellzerker, Soul Thrace, and Scrap Hound.
Spellzerker with the Warpath gives him perhaps a little potential.
Yeah, you can clear Chef Nomi boards with that.
Yeah.
That's actually a thing people were playing for a while.
I tried that, I remember, and as soon as that deck hit ladder, I was like, I already know what this is. It's the Spellzerker.
Yeah.
And then I played with it, and what ended up happening was I usually tempoed out a Spellzerker.
Yeah. But unfortunately, I'm glad we set up this dynamic on Pavel's side, because now you see the difference on RDU's side, where Pavel essentially just gets to alpha past RDU's Elysiana turn and just say, well, big deal. I just pound you for a million damage. You spent 9 mana on playing a minion that did nothing to the board, and now you're dead.
Yeah, it's quite clear that Pavel became the aggressor right there,
Yeah.
which is the use of the Zilliax. I think Pavel played this game pretty excellently from a philosophical standpoint, and I think it was dominant on the draw standpoint. Ends in a super decisive victory.
Yep.
I do think the draw was the biggest impact in this game.
Yeah, I mean, no need to hide it. It's a very difficult game to lose. When your opponent's Dr. Boom Mad Genius is so deep in the deck, they have to Elysiana to overwrite it. Yeah, you're losing that game.
Yeah. The Gorehowl finish.
Look at Pavel's fake! Damn it, Pavel! Why are you like this? I love
What do you mean?
I love Pavel. Pavel is genuinely one of my favorite people in the whole community. I tweeted about this from home when I was watching Grandmasters. I think he is genuinely one of the funniest people in the community, and I have no idea whether he realizes it.
He's like...
I don't know how much of it is like deliberately actual comedy genius and how much of it is just being oblivious and that being funny, but he is so entertaining.
You know that card, Street Trickster?
Yes.
Where it's just got one of those names where you're like, you're just a little troublemaker,
Mhm.
but it's not because it's not strong enough.
Yeah.
Well, Pavel's a very strong player. It's like he's a 2/7 Street Trickster. It's like, it's funny because it's kind of troublesome, but then you actually play against it and you go, why is this a 3-mana 2/7? That's the way I feel when I hang out with Pavel and hear him talk about Hearthstone. I just feel dumb when he talks about it because he's pretty smart.
He is. He's a very smart guy, and I gave him a hard time yesterday. But you know that doesn't change the fact that Pavel is awesome. I love hanging out with Pavel, and it doesn't change the fact that he's a fantastic player when he really gets his teeth into a meta game.
Indeed, I think that the records are not reflective of a lot of the skill that's in Europe. I think Europe is an extremely tough field where it could have been anyone's week, it could have been anyone's month, it could have been anyone's season.
Yeah.
To be at the top of that one. But I do think the players who are better prepared and are playing better do have better records, that being said. So we got to go to a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be getting into game number 2 of Pavel versus RDU, where Pavel is up a game. We're going to find out if the secondary and tertiary decks perhaps change a little bit of that. Stay tuned.
I am Frosty. I am an Australian Hearthstone player. My first reaction to being in Grandmasters was I was ecstatic. I was absolutely bouncing around the walls, and then it sort of came crashing back down to me that it felt like I had these huge expectations because I realized that I was the only Australian person in all of Grandmasters. I didn't want to let anybody down. One of the things I'd like to do this year is I'd like to make worlds through the new system. I want to be able to prove to people that I'm not just, a weak competitor in this field, and that I'm definitely a contender to be one of the strongest. When it comes to playstyle, I am a big fan of building big creatures and just smashing my opponent in the face. I feel that it's really important to be able to have another focus besides Hearthstone in your life so that you don't get burnt out. I am a martial arts instructor. I have been doing martial arts for 20 years at this point. It's been a huge part of my life. It really helps me focus on something that I need to do and get it done. I feel like I've got a really good opportunity within this first season to really prove to everyone that I'm not just an underdog and that I'm here to stay.
Hey guys, my name is Tyler. So I used to work in fashion. I used to run a website called OOTD Magazine, so Outfit of the Day Magazine. And my username on all social media platforms was just Tyler OOTD. And naturally, I just took the name Tyler OOTD as well in Hearthstone. It just kind of stuck. Being in Grandmaster, it means a lot to me. I've known that I was one of the best players in the world, but I really never had a way to define myself as what am I doing with Hearthstone, who am I? And right now, when people ask me that question, I can simply tell them I'm a Hearthstone Grandmaster. My personal goals for this year, I definitely want to create more content. I want to help people get better at the game. My other goal is to win the Grandmaster League. I feel like the Grandmaster League and the Specialist format are perfect for me. I've always been known for grinding that one deck hundreds and hundreds of thousands of games and getting really good at it and understanding the deck better than anyone else. And I feel like I will be able to show those strong points with Specialists. I'm a very free spirit. I really enjoy the feeling of anything can happen in this life, in this world. And that type of adventure, that's how I like to live life.
Game 2 of Pavel versus RDU is about to get underway. They are sticking on their primary decks because we're here in Specialist. In case you're just joining us, that was quite a long game. I'm Matt's Admirable, and Sottle is now with me on the desk here in Grandmasters. Finally, this was my birthday gift. There we go. I got Sottle back.
Oh, I forgot to gift wrap myself for you.
Not that I want to get rid of Gallon or get rid of Darok. I want them here as well. I want the Quadcast.
But I'm just better. That's what you're saying.
Well, it was a gift. Someone gave. You know how like when you don't like it, you ask for a receipt. But I'm not rude enough to ask.
Am I like one of those unwanted gifts, like from a grandmother that doesn't really know you that well, and you just get like a gift set of like bathroom products?
Unwanted is a harsh word. Unneeded, perhaps.
Okay, that's fair. I'll take that. But yeah, both players will be sticking on primary. There would be something spectacular happening here if either of them switched at this point. Pavel does have that EMP operative tech in his secondary, which we talked about briefly, but I'd be very surprised if he did go for it. I think you saw there in game 1 that the decks are so similar that introducing some potentially dead cards like IMB Cowl and EMP Operative to your deck would just not work out too well a lot of the time.
Especially with the trade-off.
Yeah, I think if you're playing against that build I was talking about that Purple and Soleil were trying to jam with, you know, additional replicating menaces and war gear and all that stuff, then yeah, maybe then we can talk about some silences and some EMP operatives. But you know, just a couple of additional war gears, probably not enough to change the equation.
Yeah, and because he has to make that predetermined trade-off, the Archivist Lysiana would be binned.
Yeah.
And it's an important tool. It's not a necessary tool, but it can be an important one. It's just when that time arrives. You know, this last game actually was kind of a rare sighting of the matchup where neither player was able to establish aggression, and they both had to move into a Lysiana style play. Yeah. Like that's actually kind of a rarity in the Warrior matchup where both players have that liberty.
Yeah. I remember sort of early on at Worlds when we were seeing like Bomb Warrior versus Control Warrior. Like even Control Warrior versus Control Warrior rarely goes to the turn limit, right? Like it gets to a Lysiana a lot more consistently, but one player will likely be ahead on tempo. One player will achieve that goal we were talking about quite heavily in the last game, where you alpha into your opponent's Elysiana turn much more successfully, and then you bank that tempo. You get to pick more aggressive cards off your Elysiana, and you end the game. So it's something that, you know, even way back then, I was kind of following the Open Cup system when it was basically 100% Control Warrior mirrors back then, and just kind of knew from experience that the game doesn't go to fatigue. And I think that gets amplified much more heavily in Bomb Warrior mirrors when the decks are just naturally so much more aggressive.
You just like lots of Battlecry deal 5.
Yeah, exactly. It's just weird that the perception is that Warrior versus Warrior will go super long, and it does. It goes longer than most other decks in the metagame, but that game that we saw last was actually a little bit of an anomaly in the matchup.
And did you see that play that RDU
I
made?
sure did.
So that is a play that I could talk about for days. And I want to talk about here how smart that is from RDU.
Go ahead.
He faced down triple 1-drop. It's one of the nightmare openings you can see against Bomb Warrior when A, you don't have the coin and able to drop a 4-drop into that situation, and B, you don't have your own way to contest the board. His armor is going to be checked for a very long time in this game. He is obviously foregone the option now of having to be able to scale the late game without having important tools later. He's going to need to draw those. Without that shield slam, though, he is going to lose so much tempo and so much life in this game that shield slam, I think, likely when Pavel doesn't have a follow-up of a mech, is going to save him in the neighborhood of 6 to 12 points of life from that single shield slam. And if you think about shield slam in general, that's usually one of the major goals, is save yourself about 6 to 12 points of life. It was absolutely crucial. It was super smart. And I think he might be able to win the game because of it.
So I'll ask you a follow-up question based on that. If RDU's hand contained, say, Shield Block or Dr. Boom Mad Genius, right? Some way to generate armor out of anywhere. Does that change the equation?
I think it can. And the reason it would change the equation is because, again, you can either take the payoff now or you can take the payoff later. The payoff later is the ideal scenario, but he does not have the liberty, I think, with his current hand to play for that later payoff.
And just to crystallize that play and how right Admirable is in his analysis right now, by shield slamming that initial 1-3, he was able to save a couple of extra points of armor, which he was then able to use his second shield slam on a much bigger threat, a 6-5 that he had no other answer to.
I've seen RDU make a lot of what I would consider philosophical missteps in some of his matchups. And RDU is a player that learns by experience in the matchup. He is, self-admittedly, he needs a lot of repetitions.
Yes.
But once he gets those repetitions, he feels as though he has a mastery of certain kinds of positions. This game is going at a lightning pace, as you can
I was going to say, do both of these players just have a hot date that they need to get to real quick? Or something? Like, what is going on?
They're in situations that they recognize. That's what's going on. You know, they've played a lot of these matchups, and everything. The cards are playing themselves right now. They really are. I mean, the shield slam was the one thing that was weird, but if you're super experienced, that's not a weird play.
Yes. And I will say that, yeah, most of those plays were really, really obvious, right? Like, there was a weapon, so he Harrison. There was 5 health of not mechs on board, so he Dynamaticked it. Like, it obviously, they seem like face-up obvious plays, but...
The shield slam is what created all of that.
Yes, but what I want to add is just we see these kind of situations where the play will look super obvious, just as obvious as those plays looked, and players will just still rope it out because they have the turn timer for a reason, right? Like, you might as well take all the time, and for some reason... that last couple of turns, both of these players just decided they wanted to get on with it.
A lot of times when the play looks super obvious, because all of your tools kind of accomplish the same thing, but they do it in a different way, it turns into a game where the iterations that open up are very wide.
Yeah.
In this game, that early shield slam tells Pavel and RDU exactly what's happening in the matchup. At that point, it becomes like one of those chess opening variations where the players go, I know exactly what's going on here, play the thing that I'd play.
Right.
And that, to me, is a sign
Good
of
analogy.
respect to both of the players in this instance.
Defend the gates.
The 7 twins in hand again for Pavel.
And it's the same story for RDU right now, too, where his hand is strong, but he's missing the big payoffs. But now he's got the big draw. And so the difference is going to come down, I think, to whether or not the early use of Shield Slam is going to be a major impact right now. He doesn't have that huge tempo tool in the later game. Pavel has more of them, so that's the thing to look out for.
Yes.
And this is smart of Pavel to try to close that trough of 8 to 10 by pressuring.
Curious about this Dr. Boom. I was curious about it last turn. I know it was just a vanilla Dr. Boom, 2 boom bots, but it seemed reasonable on the previous turn with RDU having expended shield slams, definitely scrapped hard for board. There's a potential read to be had there that a 7-7 would just be a massive problem for him in that situation.
Yeah, I think it was specifically about him closing his own trough from 8 to 9, which is on turn 8, you play the Dr. Boom. On turn 9, you get the Dr. I'm sorry, turn 8, you play the Blastmaster. Turn 9, you get the Dr. Boom plus the Hero Power. For RDU, he didn't have the liberty of holding on to Dr. Boom to generate the Hero Power in the same turn. So, you know, he has to do it and then close turn 9 with other resources. So that's another advantage to Pavel in that instance. And so I genuinely think it's going to boil down to how well they can utilize the tools that they fetch.
RDU, you can see on his face that he definitely feels like he's getting the bad rub of the breed in this series so far. And he's not wrong.
But he's not necessarily right in this game either. And this is smart of Pavel, I think, to forego the Dr. Boom and snag the damage with Snip Snap. This was a subtle difference in recognizing that he was the aggressor, that RDU has used a lot of those tools, and he made this decision very quickly.
Yep, and he also knows that this is Omega Devastator turn for the first time now for RDU, so just playing Dr. Boom and a Hero Power and leaving himself in a board state where it's a 7-7 and nothing else, that is the best possible board you can present to a warrior who is going into their turn 10.
Now, that being said,
it's not just about what is the best play I can make, it's what play does my opponent not want to see.
Now, that being said, RDU does have double Omega Devastator
Right,
here.
but yeah, Pavel's not going to play around that.
Well, that's the thing, is he's not going to play around that. So this is a big kicker in the matchup where Pavel, I'm not necessarily certain, has the freedom of going for his own Dr. Boom in this spot unless he comes out of this way ahead. So the Boombot hitting for 3 in this spot, I think is a major difference in the game.
Yeah, and the Boombot hitting last turn for 4 on the Acolyte and not 1 or 2 is a major difference in the game, and that's what cued kind of that salty reaction phase from RDU.
Yeah, RDU absolutely needs to be microbotting here, by the way. If he does not microbots here, I think that is the first actual mistake that will be made this game. He is so far behind on resources, he absolutely has to make that up.
So you want him to Devastator, second Devastator plus microbots, whereas the alternate play that he might prefer here is just Ziliax on top to trade into the 7-7?
I think it's actually better to Clockwork, Eternium Rover, and use microbots, specifically for the reason that the Boombot connected so hard on the Omega Devastator.
All right, yeah, that makes sense.
And now you're looking to Omega Devastator and Ziliax on a turn where your hero power is just not that effective.
Yeah, you're right. It's much better.
I've played way too much Bomb Warrior. Like, the fact that I know all of this stuff is stupid. But big shout out to Purple and Gallon here for playing some of those matches with me. They taught me a lot.
I'm so glad.
And so because that Boombot connected, RDU deviated, Pavel gets to play the Dr. Boom guaranteed.
Mech.
Hecklebot. Every time it's Hecklebot here.
False.
I disagree with that.
This is a time, and it was not Hecklebot.
What I'm saying is from a decision standpoint. I think that it's a minor mistake because Ziliax is extremely powerful, but I think that's the first mistake that's been made this
So explain in more detail why Hecklebot is universally superior to every other option you could ever have in every
that
scenario.
spot, in that particular spot. There's 2 reasons why it's so important.
I wish you guys could have seen his face. He was so angry.
There's 2 reasons why it's important here. Number 1 is your opponent has not used their Snip Snap, and you don't want them to be able to use their Snip Snap. That's a super powerful tool in the matchup. Number 2, there's always the Jhin chance of hitting the Archivist
would be a
Elysiana,
good
which
time
is
for a
going to be
master
important in this game.
plan.
Number 3, if you look at RDU's entire deck, the whole point is to magnetic a minion somewhere. So your whole goal should be to pull that away from them and take away that tempo generation that they can normally get. That's the strength of RDU's deck. And so when you have a number of hits with additional magnetics and with the important battle cry effects, those are effects you should be looking to attempt to strip away. And additionally, you get a 3/8 taunt body on top of that.
You do.
Hey, speak to me.
But I'm not going to deny Ziliax. It's an important tool for a different reason. So perhaps that's the game plan that Pavel thinks he's in right now and he thinks he's going towards, which is totally legitimate. If you think it's an Elysiana game, guess what? Ziliax becomes much better.
Yeah, from my perspective, I looked at that and my initial reaction was putting myself in Pavel's shoes. I would consider myself ahead in the game right now, so able to push tempo. And based on the hand that I have with Omega Devastators and Dynamatic, Ziliax is on average a better tempo tool than Hecklebot is. And that just allows me to be more aggressive. That was my initial thought. Pavel picked very quickly, so I didn't really have much time to go in much deeper than that. But my initial instinct was Ziliax as well.
I definitely don't disagree with that, and I think that's a smart way to look at it. The way that I look at it is there are rare times you get opportunities to have major spikes in win rate with very little differential in the face-up value of the play. And I think Hecklebot here gives him that opportunity sometimes.
Okay.
It's like overdrawing a card, right? The overdrawing of the card isn't the important part. It's when you hit Jhin and you burn the perfect card. Sometimes them drawing an extra card really doesn't matter in the grand scheme, but sometimes burning an important card can mean everything. You should rarely go for burn plays, but when they don't matter and your opponent draws extra cards, you probably should always go for it.
A little bit of a weird turn here for Pavel. Nothing particularly powerful that he wants to get out of his hand, but he does need to get a card out of his hand.
Yeah, it's almost like I wish I had a
Okay,
Hecklebot
then.
Omega Devastator turn. Yes! I got it in.
I love that fuse thing.
It's almost like if his opponent played a big minion, he would just have a really powerful Omega Devastator Ziliax turn.
That too.
Two can play this game, admirable.
Counterplay versus proactive play.
Yeah.
Which one's more important?
Yeah.
That's a rhetorical question, by the way. The answer is both of them sometimes.
Correct.
RDU in a very weird spot with this hand. I feel like for RDU, reactive play is going to be necessary for a little bit longer. But none of his reactive plays are super good right now.
Yeah, the War Gears have not impressed me so far, I have to say.
Well, he's been behind both games so far.
But you know how when you have 5-mana 5/5s in your deck, which are just extra things that you can draw, you will a lot of the time find yourself more behind in games.
True story, but again, the replacements that we had hypothesized for this was one Warpath.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Which Warpath would have been just suited the same role in all these
Right,
games
right.
so far. And then the second one is another reactive tool to some degree. So I think it's just that Pavel has had very good opening starts, and it's taken away that War Gear potential. So you think about how important the early start is, that's actually more important in Pavel's position than it normally is.
Yep.
So when he gets his ideal start, he actually gets a bigger payoff. It's kind of an interesting dynamic to the matchup. Also, this was something else to consider for Pavel, is taking the Ziliax takes up hand real estate, and since he's the aggressor right now, it means it takes him longer to unlock some of the powerful aggression tools he can have, like using Omega Devastator just simply to push resources, and so on and so forth.
Is this potentially the last turn that Pavel might get like a max value shield slam here? Omega Devastator seems like a more universally flexible card.
I'm typically down to use shield slams as early as possible, which you might have guessed given how smart I thought RDU shield slam was,
Right.
because you don't keep your armor around expectedly. It's kept around at a high variation.
Yeah.
And when you lose Shield Slam as a tool, that's a very major detriment. And so
Yes.
I'm in favor typically of using them before I use Omega Devastators in late game scenarios.
And I think particularly while you have a Ziliax in your hand, like if RDU is ever able to generate 2 minions at once of a reasonable size, Omega Devastator Ziliax is just so perfect against that. Whereas the Shield Slam is just kind of perfect against this exact scenario. Omega Devastator remains much more flexible for the future.
Yeah, I would be in favor here of Dynamatic as well, again, for the hand real estate purposes.
Just spend more mana.
Yeah, spends more mana. You don't get the random generation of the pilot of the weaponized pinata. Why do I always forget the name of this card? So there is some opportunity cost as well in it. But I think right now his opportunities are quite wide and they're quite valuable. So I would be tending to just spend more mana.
I will say that an experience that I did have that kind of
This would be
it
a
was a
good time for
realization
a
to me that I
master
hadn't really thought
plan.
about, that if Dynamatics do stick into your hand, I'm not saying this should be a goal in the matchup by any means, but if Dynamatics do stick into your hand and you get to Elysiana Proceedings, Dynamatics get a lot better after your opponent has played Elysiana.
Yeah, it's definitely a long-winded iteration to find that payoff,
Yeah.
but it exists. You know, it's very similar to how Ziliax will function in the matchup, where
Right.
I think holding it for a long time is a very good idea. Just all situational. The thing that has surprised me a little bit is when Pavel took the aggressive stance, and when he got some pushback from RDU, he's not really able to identify the range of RDU's hand, and so I think that's what's putting him in a perspective where he's hesitant to make more aggressive plays, because he's just not sure what he's up against yet. That is a weird turn.
RDU just left a 5-1 on the board against Kaboom.
Yeah, he was very interested in clearing off more minions. And so that tells me, because Pavel has so many random mechs in hand, that he is fearing Magnetize to some great degree.
Yeah, for sure.
Playing
This
around
would be a
random
good
is a
time
very
for a
difficult
master
thing to do.
plan.
Yeah. And so if RDU magnetizes there to get the extra health on his minion, then a minion lives on Pavel's side, I guess is the problem, and RDU just doesn't have a way to efficiently commit other things to the hand right now. Just cruel pass. I'm sorry, that's just funny to
You'd
me.
be a fool to not play Cruel. Fool in this instance is spelled F-U-U-L. It doesn't have the dots like the Motley Crue thing, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Nice. More Devastators.
I thought that was the end turn animation then. As the hero power flipped over, I thought he'd just ended turn and left it there.
Poor Cruel. One day he'll have his time to shine. Yeah. Just a big dumb idiot.
So the Zap hero power here is, in this situation, something that he'll be willing to give up.
Oh!
And
Major pickup.
yep, and since you are now with an intelligent caster, there will be no Derek Brown mistakes being made in this scenario.
I mean, nah, I'm not. No comment. He doesn't play Bomb Warrior.
It was just when it happened for like the 4th time. That's when it reached the point of a meme.
Yeah, it happened twice, and then he purposely did it once.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
then.
yeah, that in caster talk that means all the time.
Yes, correct.
I can't tell you how many times I said every time I play this matchup, when it's really about, you know, it happens like 4 times.
Yeah.
Defend the gates!
You know, I am a little bit curious about this turn. I think this was the best outcome of this. I'm just trying to look at, you know, when can unpowered Steam bot?
Yep.
Unpowered Steam bot?
Yep.
Yeah. When can that be a tool that's valuable? That's always a question I have in my mind, because I think you need to take the stance as the aggressor, recognize that, and then use unpowered Steam bot to try and protect the minions that you have in play. That's a tall order. You're looking at your opponent having to use warpaths and having to use brawls before that becomes useful. Just takes a long time.
Galvanizer?
I'd be taking the Menace. Magnetic equals damage.
I feel like Pavel has a very congested hand right now, and he's trying to cast a second Omega Assembly at some point as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is partly because of you know, the hold of Dynamatics, not going for the aggressive use of his first Omega Devastator and using it reactively.
Right.
Just like little things are compounding. This is why I tend to make aggressive plays when I am the aggressor, is because I often find myself filling my hand up because I'm the aggressor. I don't have to use any of my responsive tools. I just keep pushing and my hand keeps getting bigger and bigger in mana cost. It's not a bad thing, but it feels like the game is less less clear when I'm in that situation. I feel like my position is not quite as defined to myself. Take the aggressive roll.
Shield Slam just available yet again.
second wrench caliber too. I will be curious to see when Pavel's going to start using the wrench calibers as well. They came picked up pretty late, and RDU still got a fairly sizable deck.
Yeah.
But Pavel does need to make sure that, you know, as he's approaching the second to last and last card, that he takes the board very aggressively. So I think I'm expecting these to happen fairly certainly soon. I would probably be foregoing a blast shield here. Interesting. I like this because he's not certain he's going to get to the Elysiana turn with the lead. So if instead you can keep armor and play Elysiana with shield slam, it's much easier, I think, to accomplish that when you have blast shield up. So rather than forego the blast shield and play aggressively, instead you take the blast shield, use a resource, and use the shield slam to supplement the Elysiana tempo. I think that's smart.
I can see that. You've made a compelling argument.
The problem is he might end up getting trapped by the Beryllium.
By the Beryllium, yeah. I definitely, I'm trying to bypass caster vision here of knowing there's a Beryllium Nullifier there, but, Nullifier? Beryllium Nullifier there.
Just a big plane.
Yeah. But honestly, Bomb Warrior Mirrors, this happens, right? So much stuff gets discovered in Omega Assemblies and Discovery Drone, all that kind of stuff. Delivery Drone, sorry. Beryllium Nullifiers come up pretty often because it's a premium pick in a lot of those situations. So I feel like planning to beat at least one Beryllium Nullifier is something that you can afford to keep in mind.
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
But your Elysiana Shield Slam argument is very compelling, I will admit.
Well, it's more Pavels. I wasn't even looking at that. I was going to forego the blast shield. He found a way to get 7 extra armor out of the steal. That was smart. You know, I've now kind of entered the unfamiliar territory because Pavel has played this game in a very different manner than I normally would have. He's got so many more cards in hand than I would have had at this point.
Then.
This story deserves a new ending.
Seems like a Reaper again.
Yeah, Arcanite Reap Blast. 10 damage. You rarely use that to actually remove things. You put Militia Commander in your deck, sounds good.
One of those cards started in your deck. Might as well end there as well.
Soul Rays, more damage.
I'm very sad when I pick 2 weapons with.
That's interesting to me.
Elysiana.
I'm never sad when I pick 2 weapons with this thing. I'm sad if I'm way behind. That's when I'm sad I take 2 weapons.
3 weapons, in fact. He has Reaper, Soul Rays, and Arathi Weaponsmith on top of that.
Yeah, the Arathi Weaponsmith was a pretty unfortunate pickup because I think that just happened to be the best card in that package.
Sure.
For RDU, I think this might just have to be a Ziliax expenditure.
Okay, then.
I guess maybe not. Yeah, I think magnetizing this is actually better. So he lost the potential to have the huge payoff with the Beryllium Nullifier. But you create a pretty awkward turn for Pavel.
Right. I don't know, dude. He has a Wrench Caliber. He's just drawn a Soul Rays.
That's fine.
5 other cards in
It's
his deck
fine.
that also equip weapons.
I'm telling you, when you have the lead, the weapons are good.
He's running out of minions to maintain that lead, though.
It's fine. I'm telling you.
Okay.
It looks scary. I know it does.
Okay, then.
This is really the first issue he's run into here, is attacking this. I think he should not be attacking this. I think he should be attacking face, and he should spend a Dynamatic to generate health. The whole point of the Dynamatic right now is to generate health. You want to kill a minion before he gets to attack you. Use the Dynamatic, deal 3 extra damage, save 5 health. I think this was I think this is a poorly done situation. Because now the whole goal of the Dynamatic is to try to attack for 3. That's pretty unlikely to happen versus a Dr. Boom Mad Genius.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about as good as it's going to get.
Wow, who is that handsome?
Like RDU cashing in on the Clockwork Goblin to deliver a Boombot to face tells you everything you need to know about how you use minions in the matchup.
Yeah.
Deal as much damage as possible.
And worth calling back as well. Pavel now has a pretty dead-looking Shield Slam in his hand that could be in a Mega Devastator in this situation.
Yeah, that was I don't recall exactly what the last 2 cards in his deck were, so that is a bit of a surprise to me. But he does get the Shield Slam with the Dynamatic payoff. Pretty interested in Spark Drill here to deliver immediate board clears while I use all the weapons in play. Whoa, what? Oh, this is interesting. So he's trying to use the minions to just simply keep RDU's resources limited and exhausted. Ah, interesting.
I mean, I'm just looking at it like he needs to try and eventually stick a board because all he has in the remainder of his deck is a bunch of weapons.
See,
like equipping a weapon and hitting RDU in the face without minions in play is not going to win this game.
I don't know if I believe that. I actually think this is smart from Pavel because of that. Like, use your minions to neutralize as many of their minions as possible, so that way you can unlock weapons swinging to face as a real potential.
We're saying the same thing. We're not disagreeing with each other. We're saying the same thing.
But no, I think that this is smart from Pavel.
I'm agreeing.
Well, you just said you didn't like it.
No, I didn't. Story deserves a new ending.
What did I say? What you said again? Because I feel like I heard you say that he's running out of minions, so this is a problem.
Hold on, Elysiana.
We'll adjourn for a moment.
Yes, I said he's running out of minions. This is a problem. Therefore, he needs to use what minions he has to consolidate a board.
Okay,
he can't just be swinging face. He needs to clear his opponent's board, stick his own minions.
Okay, I misheard you. I apologize.
Yikes. RDU has not been a friend of the Elysiana. He has
got
been offered Leroy and
charge.
Reckless Rocketeer so far, though. I don't know how many of them he's picked. Leroy, Warpath, Rover, Drake, Ward.
I'm quite surprised he took the Drake over the Reckless Rocketeer. 6 is a bit of an awkward cost, admittedly.
Defend the gates!
Pavel gets a first connection.
Yep.
That's important.
There's just Mogush and Wardens in his deck.
It's quite good against the random weapons that Pavel took the whole way through.
Just call him Reynad, because he put a Mogush and Warden in his deck.
I think we have officially reached the Ziliak's turn. That EMP operative is randomly generated, by the way. That is not from Pavel's secondary or tertiary deck, which he has available.
That was an Elysiana choice for Pavel.
It's actually quite brutal here, too.
You're not wrong. It's one of the few minions he did pick up.
So if RDU uses Mogush on Warden, I think he's looking at running in the 3/1/1s, obviously. So much more interested in using Warpath as a result of that. It's the weaker card of all the cards in his hand. Swing that Salt Rays. You got 7 cards left in the deck, and you got about 92 weapon charges.
But we're back into this same debate, right? Where if he doesn't get minions consolidated on the board first, just playing weapons and swinging them at the face, I don't think wins the game.
Okay, that's where I disagree. I think that does win the game. I think you're using your minions as a response and neutralizing your opponents instead of using your own and giving your opponent an opportunity to use something weird from Elysiana is worse. I genuinely believe that. Now, RDU happened...
We are just going to disagree on that.
Yeah, so RDU happened to draw Mogushon Warden, and ends up with like about the worst...
Yeah, I mean, but you were also staring at Blast Shield. You also know that 0 shield blocks have been played by your opponent. They may or may not have been overwritten by the Elysiana.
Yeah.
And you are going to pass the turn with no minions in play and give your opponent free reign to develop whatever they want while you swing a weapon at their face. That just doesn't seem like a winning line.
Is it free reign? I mean, you can use your minions to respond.
Yes.
You are Dr. Boom right now.
Yes.
One of your minions was an EMP operative.
That is also true.
Yeah, like now your minions, like they just attack and you still don't have a Soul Thrays in play.
But you do have a 5/6 in play.
I
think that the way it panned out was pretty ideal. So, you know, I'll concede that point. But I can tell you what, RDU didn't know that the 2 cards from RDU's Elysiana were Mogushon Warden, Mogushon Warden.
Nope.
And now that minion development is basically turned out to be pretty much the same thing because of the Warpath picked up. RDU's in trouble. He just has a lot less stuff.
I mean, Warpath just doesn't work here, right? Warpath never works against a security rover.
It's kind of a weird situation. So it summons this one, and then it summons this one.
Every Warpath you play summons a fresh 2/3, right?
But it starts to weaken the ones that are summoned initially.
Yes.
So what ends up happening is this gets quite low, and you turn the 5/6 on your opponent's board into just kind of some generic smaller minions.
Yeah.
It's like a consolidation effort.
And actually, yeah, having the Kaboom to go along with that instead of the last Warpath actually makes a big difference as well.
Yes. So there's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 16 weapon charges in Pavel's deck.
Yeah, by the way, like, we are heavily debating whether these weapons should have been equipped and swung. I would go back and disagree, as I did at the time with picking that many weapons to begin with. So, you know, this is where we are now. We live in this world. I'm trying to work out, like, how I would play in this scenario. And I agree, after the point that Pavel picked so many weapons, which I disagree with in the first place, I think he's played it very well. I think getting minions down first is a very reasonable prospect.
I don't have a problem with it. I just want to make sure I swing all my weapons.
Muse at 10, Admirable wants to deal as much damage as possible to Fate every turn, with no other consideration. Warpath picked up again. Mechanical Whelp, an option now as well.
You just need something big to happen. And I think this is probably another Warpath expenditure turn.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
I guess the question is how much damage can you take before you need to Warpath again? I think staring down the weapon, it comes a lot more scary.
Yeah. And of course, RDU doesn't know that the majority of Pavel's deck is weapons right now. He might think the majority of Pavel's deck is minions that he's going to have to remove at this point, in which case Warpath can potentially be even more valuable than this. I think with 2 shield blocks in hand, he has the luxury of just sitting back and saying, you know what? If I need to gain armor, I do.
I don't think he can cast the shield blocks. I really don't.
I guess...
His whole game plan was to hold those to get the advantage in the Elysiana scenario.
It's true. He does have that buffer, though, 6 to 4, to be able to still cast one of them, potentially.
It's just getting ugly. I mean, now the weapons are really adding up.
Yeah. And I do think this has paid off, Pavel just getting a few minions in play first. Like, he found a turn where minions were in play that could hit face, and he had a Soul Thrace behind that hitting face as well. I think he's timed it very well.
Bite my tongue. It would have dealt more damage, and his result would be the same. I said I was going to bite my tongue. I lied.
That is simply false.
How is that false?
Because he would have had no minions in play and faced down 2 Mogushon Wardens with just a Soul Thrace equipped.
So first Assault Race gets equipped, you attack face. Your opponent plays Mogashon Warden, you respond with Militia Commander, and with 5/6 you hit one of them, and then you hit the Mogashon Warden, and it's a 1/3. You have a 5/5 and a 2/4 in play. You've dealt 4 extra damage, and you've used 2 charges of your Assault Race.
And then you end the turn without Security Rover on board, and then your opponent's clear is better. You don't have minions in play the next turn, which deal less damage.
So what you do at the end is then you attack face, and then you just develop minions at that point.
Right, and you've dealt less damage over the course of those turns.
No, you've gotten more charge. You've gotten more swings. The minions deal 0 damage.
No,
Yes.
you're just wrong.
You're just wrong. Go back and watch the replay. You're wrong on this. There's video evidence. I'm not giving this one up.
Okay.
I refuse.
All right.
This is my birthday, all right?
All right, fine.
I've been trying to fit that one in all cast right now. And RDU, again, in that situation, do I need to Warpath or do I need to get something going?
For a master plan.
I think when you're staring at Assault Rays, it looks a lot scarier to just use your minion.
Yeah, and when you're scaring at your newly acquired knowledge that your opponent has an EMP operative in your deck, defending yourself with the Ziliax becomes a lot more scary as well.
You have to separate it.
Yep.
Can RDU exhaust Pavel's resources? And this is where the weapons are going to come into play. Looking at 5 and 5 here.
Time for a master plan.
EMP, Rusty Recycler.
What, if anything, attacks the Eternium Rover in that
Rusty,
scenario?
I'm putting Rusty Recycler into it. I know that my opponent has a Warpath, which I mean, I'm not happy about, but if they want to use a Warpath on this small of a board while I have a ton of weapons, I'm happy with that. Whew. Yeah, you already know my stance. Oh, he gets to attack again!
Yeah.
That's cool!
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant!
Yeah.
That's like the old attack with the weapon, then play the Doomhammer and attack
Play the
again.
Doomhammer
Ah!
attack. Yeah.
That's a discovery. Wow, I've made a lot of mistakes with weapons now that I think about it.
I do think it is kind of a departure in philosophy from the way Pavel's been playing up to this point, where he's valued minion presence before additional damage with weapons up until that point, and that turn he chose to deal extra damage with the Arcanite Reaper over developing a Rusty Recycler.
He's just got so many weapon charges. I think it's smart.
All right. He also has quite a lot of minions left in his hand at this point.
He definitely, I think, wins this by virtue of the fact that his Elysiana provided damage, in addition to just having stuff to do. And RDU, his Elysiana was quite poor, and frankly was just having to use more resources to respond, all because of the early game.
Yeah. He does have 2 Leroys in there still. He did find some, reasonable tempo options, with the Drakes. Eternium Rover, I guess, is a reasonable tempo play if you have magnetic options like Ziliax to put down on it. The top half of his deck was just all the Warpaths.
And Mogashon Wardens.
And Mogashon Wardens, yeah, the defensive options.
Oh, and now he shield blocks.
Knew he had a 67% chance of drawing Leroy Jenkins, which was actually pretty powerful for him on that turn because he can compare it with the combine it with the Kaboom. Sorry.
Excuse me, a 66.66% repeating, of course, percent chance.
Yes, which, by the way, when everyone says that, they say 66% chance, which is incorrect rounding. That's why I say 67. Like, that's actually a justifiable way to round that number. 66 isn't. That's just wrong.
I will take every opportunity I get to reference the initial video that I will ever get in my entire life.
Yeah.
Just when he asks Abdul for a number crunch and he gives him one on their percent chance of survival is the most magnificent thought in the world to me, that you have someone that bright while you're running like a level 58 dungeon.
Which, by the way, RDU is dead here.
Oh, yeah.
allowing for a miracle from Delivery Drone, he is absolutely dead. Like, the game is quite clearly solvable from this point. There is a Leroy Jenkins and what is and a Drake in RDU's deck, and a Drake in hand. That is all his resources. Pavel, on the other hand, still has 2 Ziliacs remaining.
Wow, and the Drakes are the bottom 4 cards, so he doesn't even get the payoff of playing the early Drake and getting 5 armor. Right. Instead, he drew Mogush on Wardens.
Yep.
It is worth saying that 1 point of fatigue difference right now turns into a much bigger one later on, but I think the minion lead is just going to crush that.
Yeah, minion lead beats fatigue lead, or fatigue lead almost every time. It needs to be a huge discrepancy to not be overwritten by you just having a minion in play attacking every turn.
By the way, still 6 weapon charges.
Yeah. But also, by the way, still a minion remaining, and he hasn't been hitting delivery drones.
And these are crucial hero power times for RDU. He just, Kaboom does so little.
Right.
And you needed basically delivery drones, microbot, blast shield exclusively for like the rest of the game. So RDU's trying to count it. He's like, what sequence of hero powers can get me there, and what outcomes do I need?
Pavel knows the contents of RDU's hand right now, or at least 67% of the contents of Pavel's hand right now. Ember Scale Drake, Leroy Jenkins, and a mystery card. But that mystery card almost boils down exactly to the second copy of Shield Block at this point, just based on the way the game has resolved.
I actually think the way the game is panned out, it cannot be anything else other than the second copy of Shield Block. I'd be pretty shocked to find out it's Cairn. I'll tell you that. Like,
RDU's just been playing the long game this whole time.
He's like,
Cairn, last minion, boom.
All right, it's Leroy time. Pavel, that's going to mean more uncontested damage. Got a blast shield. So 3, and then RDU's taking 2, is that correct? Or yeah, you definitely don't want to suit this onto the Alarmabot.
No, that seems unwise.
I've accidentally done that before. Yeah, and then the second Ziliak's lifesteal. Too important. RDU visibly unhappy with the result. Yeah. Not frustrated though, it's just kind of like, yeah, well, that's the feeling.
Pavel choosing to take the damage himself there, with seeing that microbots come down next turn to deal with his minions.
Yeah, just he gets the life returned.
Yeah.
And he actually eliminates all the minions.
Yeah, that's fair. And if microbots deal with his Ziliacs in full, then he gets a full heal, gets back in the situation. Yeah, this makes perfect sense.
The pace of this game, I was very happy with.
Delivery drone. Probably too late at this point.
Yep. Takes X and then Y on damage from fatigue.
Yep. With no minion in play, it can't even be a Ziliax to heal him up. It wouldn't even heal him up enough in this point anyway. He'd heal for 3 and then fatigue for 5 on the following turn.
I give up.
The most RDU can do here is take his fate into his own hands and concede with the shield block, but chooses not to, just gives it up. Pavel in a very slow-paced 2-0, but a 2-0 nonetheless.
Was that game slow-paced? It's just long, right?
Oh, it was 2 Bomb Warrior games that both went to fatigue. I would consider that slow.
They played fairly quickly, though.
In spots, they did, yeah. There was definitely that burst that we highlighted where they really rat-a-tatted back and forth with a couple of plays. But I think there was a lot of considered turns there, especially towards the end. Like, when it gets closer to fatigue scenarios, you will generally see even the fastest player slow down, because the closer you get to fatigue, the easier it is for the human brain to solve a game of Hearthstone. Like at the start of the game, Hearthstone is just never a solvable game in the way that, you know, checkers is or whatever. But when you start approaching a fatigue scenario, there are far less variables remaining in the game, so the human brain can actually start to wrap around all the possible interactions. So that's what you see players do when you approach those fatigue scenarios. It's why you saw RDU up in arms about how there was a second Ziliax, because that was one of those X factor variables that he hadn't considered, the additional Ziliax coming down.
My only statement that I have in response to what you said is if you're going to say ratata, make sure you go ratata!
Okay.
Pavel's ready for an interview. Pavel, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, how's it going?
Fine. How about you?
I'm doing all right. You know, just kind of celebrating my birthday here, watching some good old-fashioned Warrior Mirrors, which is exactly what I wanted. I'm casting Aristotle. Your win today brings you up to a 3-9 record now, which obviously takes you out of the playoff race. So my first question to you is, what do you find motivation for in playing these matches? What's your goal over the next couple, and some overall thoughts? What do you hope to accomplish?
Yeah, for now I'm less motivated that I was at the start of the season, obviously because I can't make playoffs anymore, but still I'm gonna try to take every victory as I can and play my best.
So obviously you were playing a Warrior Mirror today, but there was a little bit of a twist because RDU has a bit of a weird deck with Wargears and Cairn in there in his primary. In your testing, did Wargears have an impact on the game?
Honestly, I didn't test against Radu's version. On paper, it seems like his version has to be favored in a Bomb Warrior Mirror against my version. But in game one, it was just Dr. Boom against Little Dwarf Magni, and nothing he can do about it. Game two was kind of close. I actually don't think I played game two perfectly. There was a lot of decisions, and I don't have experience after Elysiana shenanigans in that matchup.
What specifically were you looking at in game number 2? What do you think you could have improved on the most?
I don't know. I need to rewatch game.
What's your gut tell you? I'm putting you on the spot. You got to pick something.
I don't know. There was a lot of different decisions. It's hard to say.
You're ready for casting. Safe answers the entire way, Pavel. Come on, man. Lay it on me. I know you got some hot takes on stuff. I want to hear some of them.
No, I can't say if I made any mistakes because there was no any critical mistakes in game two. One thing I could have done differently is to press my hero powers less often and play minions, but I'm not sure if it's correct. I need to rewatch.
All right, anything else?
I mean, before we let you go, do you want to wish Admirable a happy birthday?
You don't have to.
Yeah, happy birthday, Admirable. It seems, I mean, what a better birthday it can be than watching Bomb Warrior Mirrors and casting it.
I love the Bomb Warrior Mirrors, Pavel. I am in the minority on this one, and I'm totally okay with that. Pavel, congratulations on your win, and looking forward to seeing the rest of your matches.
Thank you.
You got a hint of the troublemaker aspect in there, but he wouldn't hit me with it. You're
really digging in deep.
Because I know he's got it in him.
And I know why you were asking so hard, because you wanted him to say, I think I should have played weapons and hit him in the face.
No.
More. And then you would have gone, yeah, see, told you, idiot.
Well, I would have done that, but that's not what I was fishing for. That would definitely have been a reactive moment in that regard. I was not anticipating him saying that. Mm-hmm. I was kind of anticipating him talking about the hero powers a bit and playing a bit more for tempo.
Yeah. It's curious, because last week he did skip hero powers a lot and was criticized for it quite heavily. So it's now interesting to see that come full circle, right? Where he basically hit his hero power every turn, but now at the end of the game, he's thinking, oh, maybe I should have skipped my hero power some more.
Yeah, well, take a look at the standings as I continue talking about the point afterwards, which is, you know, the less experienced you are, the harder it is to identify what your correct tempo plays are. Last week, he tried to do that very aggressively, and I think he learned a lot of lessons about when that happens.
Right. And
so you can see the standings now. RDU, this was, I think, a very crucial match for him because he has played his 2 for the week. and didn't secure either of them. He went from 6-4 to 6-6. And so this week for RDU was super important and now puts him at the risk of not securing a playoff spot.
Yeah, much bigger game or much bigger match for RDU than it was for Pavel. You know, but it just be like that sometimes in league formats. And Pavel is playing the spoiler. We talked about this yesterday. I think it's a great mentality to have. You know, he's fighting for prize money that does come with every victory. He's fighting for pride because you saw in the media that we run for him in his interviews, he said, "I want to prove that I'm still one of the best players." I think there's a line in there: "Show that no player is better than me." He's not shown that so far, so there's still a lot of pride on the line for Pavel to bring his score up to a respectable level. But it was RDU that had everything on the line in that series, and Pavel just got to play the spoiler.
Yep, you're looking for that playoff spot, so that way you could advance to a global final that's going to be taking place towards the end of the year, perhaps in November.